Carr. I'm the Vice President of Recruiting for Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions. We welcome you today to the webinar, and today we are joined by our senior recruiter, who is Kelsey Robinson. Kelsey has been with Worldwide for a year and has helped a whole bunch of different kinds of healthcare folks get jobs here at Worldwide, and currently works with our NCLEX passing RN candidates. So from wherever you are in the world, we would love to know where you're watching from. Please drop that in the chat. And also just to note, Kelsey will be happy to answer all of your questions at the end today. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will be happy to answer them at a later time. Over to Kelsey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm so excited to be talking with you about this. Like Amy mentioned, I've worked with a lot of different healthcare professionals and helping them get a job here in the U.S. I've been in a number of interview events with hiring managers and have taken the time to learn some of the things that they really look for in an interview and want to share those tips with you so that I can help you succeed in your next U.S. interview. So let's get started. Right now, as you probably know, international RN hiring is a very competitive space with lots of nurses interviewing for the same exact job that you are. On any given day, an interviewer can be interviewing several candidates for their unit. But with some practice, research, and some helpful tips, you can make sure to really set yourself up for success in any nursing interview that you're in. So let's get started with the first of our 5 tips for you guys today. The first thing that I want to mention is present yourself well. How you present yourself in an interview goes a really long way for the interviewers, and this is your first chance to set yourself apart from the other candidates that might be interviewing. The first thing that I want to mention is you should always smile when you're in your interview. You should show excitement that you're happy to be there and that you're excited about the opportunity that they're presenting. Preparing for your interview with a positive attitude and excitement about the opportunity goes a long way. The interviewers take time out of their days. They might have a lot going on, but when they join that interview and see your smiling face, it means the world to them. Next, you should always remember to dress appropriately. If you're at home and not on duty at work, you should dress in nice clothes that are appropriate for your interview. If you are at work and you have to take a break from your job and interview on your lunch break or on your break, it is totally okay to wear scrubs in your interview. The interviewers know that that's sometimes, fitting in your interview in a busy day is just how it goes. The next thing that is really important is getting your space ready. If you're at work or you're at home, make sure that you have a strong internet connection. If you're not somewhere with a strong internet connection, it's okay to relocate to make sure that you find that connection so that you're able to talk to your interview. Make sure that you have headphones or a good way to listen in and that your background is either blurred or free of distractions. Sometimes we can be in busy spaces and there can be a lot going on around us, but making sure that you don't have any distractions helps the interviewer to focus on you during your interview. Our next tip is be prepared. And this seems pretty straightforward, but I'll give you some tips to really help you prepare yourself well. The first thing that you should do is research the facility. Nurses that learn information about the facility ahead of the interview show to the interviewer that they're really interested in this opportunity and they really care about the location and the facility that they're interviewing for. I recommend that you search on the internet, do a quick search of the name of the hospital that you're interviewing for and learn a little bit about their mission and the hospital location to show that you really care about the hospital. This is also going to increase your confidence going in because you're going to know about the people that you're talking to. Learning about where the hospital is located, what city and what state, how big the hospital is, these are all things that will help you feel confident going into your interview. One thing, and this is probably the top thing I recommend to all nurses that are interviewing, is ask questions of your interviewer. There will be a point in your interview where the interviewer typically says, "Do you have any questions for me today?" And this is a great chance to ask some questions that you've prepared for them. When you ask questions, it shows them that you're really interested in what they have to say and you want to learn more about the facility. I have a list here of some sample questions that are really great to ask. These really show your interest in the interview. You can ask them, what do you love about working in this facility or living in this area? The interviewers usually really love the hospital that they're working for, and they want to get a chance to tell you about it. And so this is an opportunity for you to show interest in what they do as an employee of the hospital. You can ask them, does the hospital offer mentorship or tuition reimbursement for continuing education? This shows the employer that you are really interested in building your career there and want to continue with them, and that you want to learn and grow as a nurse. It's also great to ask what the orientation process looks like for new hires. Every hospital has a different orientation process, and so learning about this will help prepare you for when you arrive in the US and set expectations for what you should be preparing for. It's great to ask how many beds the facility has, how many beds that unit has, or what their nurse to patient ratio is. This will answer any questions that you have about the facility, but it also shows that you are prepared and have a level of knowledge to deal with that many patients. Another great thing to ask is if they already have international nurses working at that hospital or even in that unit. Having other nurses that have gone through a similar process as you really helps make the transition easier. So it's a great question to ask the interviewer. You can also ask about their paid time off and their overtime policies so that you can know what you'll be paid if you work overtime and what holidays you have off at that hospital. This is also a great chance to ask about shift differentials. Usually your interviewer is going to have that information so that you can make sure that you know exactly what your compensation is going to look like. You also can ask about career and growth opportunities for yourself in that hospital. This shows the interviewer that you would like to build your career within this hospital, and that is a really great thing to show them in their interview. You also can ask questions about the location that the hospital is located in. You can ask about safety of that area. You can ask about the schools in that area. Most of the time, the person interviewing you lives in the area that that hospital is in. And so if you have concerns or questions about the city, this is a great time to ask that as well. You can also ask what type of nurses do really well in their unit. And then this is a chance for you to share why you would be a good fit for this unit. So those are just some example questions. You can come up with your own that work best for you, but nurses that ask questions in their interview are going to show the interviewer that they really care about the interviewer's time and want to learn more. The next part of being prepared is making sure that you have your Zoom link ahead of time. Here at Worldwide, we have a team of dedicated interview facilitators that are going to be working with you the day of your interview. They are the ones that are going to be sending you your Zoom link and answering any questions that you have the day of your interview. Usually, we're going to send this to you on email or Skype, so making sure that you have your email and your Skype open and ready is a great way to make sure that you're prepared. We also have team members in the Philippines that are helping you prepare for your interview. They might send you messages or set up calls with you before your interview, and they always have great tips and information to share to help you prepare. Next up, let's talk about what happens in the interview itself. This is where your nerves might start to kick in. You're nervous about what's about to happen, but just take a deep breath and remember that you're a great nurse and this is an awesome opportunity to share about yourself. Most of the time, the interviewer is going to ask you to tell a little bit about yourself. You can tell some personal details about yourself, maybe about your family or your hobbies, but what they really want to hear is why you're a great nurse, what types of units you've worked in, what types of patients and cases that you've handled, and what type of equipment that you've worked with as well. Prepare to give a brief summary about your nursing experience. You can talk about the different hospitals that you've worked in and maybe talk with them about why you love being a nurse. This is also a chance to tell them why you want to come to the US and why you want to work in that facility. This is one thing that really helps set nurses apart in their interviews. Make sure to relax and slow down. A lot of times candidates come into interviews really nervous, and so you talk really quickly, which is normal when we're nervous. But if you can take a deep breath and slow down, this will help the interviewer better understand what you have to say. Letting the interviewer see your personality is really helpful in showing them that they would be a great addition to your team. You should also focus on the details. If an interviewer asks you a question, don't just respond with a yes or a no answer. Give them an example of a time that you helped a patient. Sometimes they'll ask you about what was the most difficult patient that you have, or how would you deal with a family member in a unit environment? Give them an exact example of a situation that you handled. Sometimes they want to know things like, how do you get along with your coworkers and what's your relation like with your supervisor? Again, give a detailed example of what this looks like for you. Lastly, don't interrupt. Wait until your interviewer is completely finished talking before you say what you need to say. Make sure they have their question finished and take time before you answer. Now, once you've had your interview, it went great, you got to talk with them, you got all of your questions answered. Now we go on to what happens after the interview. And this part can take some time, but it's really important that you work with your recruiter after your interview. Every nurse in our system is working with a dedicated recruiter that's helping them prepare for their interview and helping them after their interview. This will be your person to talk to about any follow-up or any questions about your interview. They will be able to also provide you with updates regarding your interview and your application. But when it comes to the follow-up of your interview, it's really important to be patient. Getting feedback about your interview can take some time, but rest assured that your interviewer is always working to get this information for you. Keep in mind that the decision to hire you is not made by our team here at Worldwide, but it's made by someone at that hospital and that employer. Sometimes it can take some time to get feedback about your interview, but my advice is that it is always worth it to wait for the right employer. We have other opportunities that you can interview with, but if that's the employer you really want, it's really worth it to wait until you hear their feedback. In the meantime, while you're waiting your feedback, continue doing research about the facility and the immigration process. Learn as much as you can, so if you do get an offer, you're going to be able to make an informed decision. This is a really big decision that you're making for you and your family, so our team and the interviewers want to make sure that you have all of the information that you need before moving forward with your job offer. Now, what happens next? If you get an offer from your employer, congratulations. Your recruiter is going to work with you to answer any questions that you have about your job offer. This is a really big decision, so take your time to read the offer carefully and make sure that you have all the information you need to make the right decision for you and your family. Your recruiter can provide you with additional information about the facility. They can answer any questions that you have, so make sure to reach out to them to make sure that you're making the right decision for you. Sometimes you interview and you don't get an offer with that employer, and that's okay. Sometimes it just means that maybe you weren't ready in that interview. Sometimes it means that maybe you're just not a right fit for their unit, or sometimes it means that they don't have any more openings for that particular unit, but that's okay. Your recruiter is going to continue working with you to help you find the right fit for you. Sometimes we have other interview events that we can help you get scheduled for, and other times we can help you get put on a wait list for other opportunities that are coming up your way. Your recruiter also will help you, if possible, to provide you with any feedback about your interview. If the interviewer has anything that they would like to share with you about how you did in your interview, your recruiter is going to have this information and be able to pass it along to you. So these are my top 5 tips for you guys that I would love for you to review and prepare to help with your next U.S. interview. I'm going to go over to CJ and see if we have any questions from the chat.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Kelsey. That's a really amazing presentation. And that's really helpful because, doing an interview like anytime, anywhere, it gives me I always feel nervous every time. So these tips are really helpful. So yeah, we have questions from the chat. I see 2 of them. So if for all our viewers out there, if you have questions for Kelsey or for Amy, please put that on the chat and we will try to answer it all. Okay, so first question is from Daquan, and he said, every time when I hear the tell me about yourself questions, I don't know how long should I talk about me. Any tips for that?
Yeah, that's a really normal question to ask. I think it happens to any of us in an interview, right? You don't want to talk too short, but you also don't want to talk too long. I think talking for around a minute or so about yourself is the perfect amount of time. My advice is to prepare maybe 3 or 5 things about yourself. Maybe tell them where you live and where you're located. Maybe tell them a little bit about your family. And then lastly, tell them about your experience. So talk about the hospitals you've worked in, and then the units that you've worked in. A minute to a minute and a half is about the right amount of time for that.
Okay, cool. That's really helpful. And another question is, I think this one's for Amy. So Lena Peters said, I passed NCLEX RN for New York, and I am a licensed and currently working in Canada, and I am a permanent resident of Canada. How can I apply to work in New York?
Yeah, great question. And I think my first answer would always be you should connect with your recruiter, and they will be able to look at your experience and help you find what you're eligible for. Right this minute, we don't have a ton of openings in New York, but we do have some openings in neighboring states that have a lot of choice in Pennsylvania, and we've got some upcoming in New Jersey. And I think, for those, there may be some additional opportunities and more specialties that are available. But I think the very best thing is to connect to your recruiter, and they can help you with your experience and those sorts of things. I think also something to note is that just because you take the NCLEX in a state doesn't mean that you have to go to work in that state. We have an amazing licensure team that can help you with all the directions that you need in order to get your license endorsed to a different state.
Yes, that is definitely correct. Well, my wife passed her NCLEX in Vermont, and she transferred it to New York and then into South Carolina, and now she's working in South Carolina. But when she applied, her license was in Vermont. Yeah, so yeah. I saw a question about retrogression, and I think this one is for Amy.
Yeah. So the most recent visa bulletin, I think it's for August, has come out, and I think the priority date that they're currently processing final action for is in 2020. I think, though, really what's important is that we're looking for the visa bulletin in October, when all of the new visa numbers will renew, and that we're able to have access to all the visas to see what will happen. If you want more details than that, Sir Ron Hoppy is going to be doing a webinar very soon with 2 immigration attorneys. So all the immigration attorneys that you may ever want. Please follow Worldwide on Facebook, and you can see all of the invitations for all of our webinars, but also you can sign up for the retrogression webinar.
All right, cool. Yeah, and I also put the registration link on the chat, and that'll be next week. That'll be our retrogression webinar. Okay, next question is, let me see here. Okay, this question is from Dorisel, and she said, can we ask if we got accepted or ask about the salary at the end of the interview?
Sure, that is a great question. Usually they won't know if you are hired at the end of your interview. Usually they're doing a lot of interviews in one day, and so they need to take some time to talk with the other interviewers and see who's going to be a best fit. So it's not usually appropriate to ask in your interview if you got the job. You can totally ask your recruiter that information, but the interviewer might not always know. When it comes to the salary amount, that is not usually calculated by the interviewer that's talking with you. Usually the salary is calculated by their HR department or another team at the hospital. So the interviewers don't usually know how much you're going to be making. A lot of times the interviewer is actually the unit manager for the unit you're going to be working for. And so they don't have the salary information.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And another question is from Carmela. She said, how do you handle an interview if you were short of the required years of experience?
Sure, that's a great question. Sometimes they might be looking for 2 years of experience, and maybe you only have, a year and 8 months or something like that. I think it's a really great opportunity to talk about your skills as a nurse. So you can say something like, even though I don't have 2 years of experience, here's why I would be a great fit for your team. Just because you have the 2 years of experience, maybe you don't have the same skills that they're looking for in that unit. So I think it's a great chance to talk about the skills that you do have, the equipment that you've worked with, the type of patients that you work with. A lot of interviewers are really excited to help someone grow on their unit. So it's a great chance to talk about your skills and experience.
All right. So next question is from Sheila. She said, and I see this like most of the times, this question, what are the chances for someone who do not have current experience but had nursing experience like 10 years ago?
Sure, that's a great question. Right now, all of the employers that we work with require you to be currently working in a bedside setting in order to interview. Now, this may be frustrating sometimes because you're saying, well, I have 10 years of experience. Why can't they interview me? But the reason for this is that because the immigration process takes some months, they need you to arrive here in the US with current and relevant experience in the unit that you're working in. It's also important to note that technology in a nursing setting changes a lot over the years. So just because you had nursing experience maybe 10 years ago, you might not be familiar with the same practices or same equipment that they're using today. So currently, all of our employers require you to be actively working in a bedside nursing setting to be eligible to interview.
All right. And also, I'm seeing a lot of questions for our recruiters. So I'm going to put a link on the chat for our live recruiters. You can ask your questions with them so they can, help you with all of the queries and questions that you have. So Amy, do you have more questions to ask for Kelsey?
I don't think we have any other questions. I would just say thanks for putting this together, and we appreciate your time. Just a couple of things before we close out. I think, like CJ mentioned, we have recruiters right now live online for you to chat to if you'd like to talk to somebody right now. And then I think, too, if you already have a recruiter, please feel free to connect to them with specific questions. Like on Facebook when you haven't. We post advertisements for new employers, and we have all of our webinars. You can find all of the great information here on Facebook. Also, if you have a nurse friend that you would like to refer, or colleague or family member, you can earn up to $250 for NCLEX passing RNs, and we invite you to become a referrer in our referral program. So if you have not applied and you don't have a recruiter and you don't want to chat with somebody right now, please go on our website and apply. We'd love to get you connected immediately to a recruiter, and it would be an honor to help us on our journey. Thank you to everybody who took your time today to join our webinar. Thanks to CJ and to Kelsey for all of your time this morning. And I hope that everybody has a good morning or evening wherever you are in the world.